Writers at Work Primary 3 and 4 Parents Talk 2023. My name is Teacher Aaron alongside Teacher Kristen. So before we begin, may I see the hands of parents who have seen their child's WA1 results already? Wonderful, thank you so much. So yeah, who among you, that's my next question. Who among you are satisfied or are fine with their WA1 results? No one, not even one. Okay, but thank you so much. And that is, I think, the reason why we are here this early. It is for us to give our children a head start in their English exam. So don't worry, we got you covered. But the question is, how are we as parents able to do this even at home? Don't worry, in this talk, we will give you tips and strategies for you to take on or for you to help your children ace their English exams, okay? So before that, today we'll be covering four tips. We'll be covering four sections. Firstly, Teacher Kristen and I will introduce ourselves and I'll share a bit about our company. Then after that, Teacher Kristen will take us through the curriculum and also the SEAB assessment philosophy. Then we'll get to the meat of our sharing session wherein I'll discuss how we here at Writers at Work can help you help your children with their oral and paper 2. And Teacher Kristen will also tell you how your children can improve their writing. So these are all the methods that we have honed so that we can make full marks possible for your children.
Hi everyone, my name is Teacher Kristen. I'm from Writers at Work. I'm a senior teacher and at this point, going to put a bit of my master's to good use. So, our Writers at Work curriculum is designed to guide students to climb upwards in mastery of the English language, whether auditory, oral, or written. Our curriculum is designed around the Nation and McAllister framework. It centers on the goals of the parent, the student, and Writers at Work. For the parent, your ultimate goal is to help your child score good marks, but also to achieve communicative competence in the English language for later in life. For the child, it is to gain confidence in writing, as well as to speak and enjoy the learning experience. Meanwhile, for Writers at Work, being your child's champion, we aim to help you and your child achieve your goals. With these goals in mind, we then considered the needs, the environment, and the principles of the education landscape in Singapore. The needs would manifest in the weighted and non-weighted assessment in schools, as well as any specific learning needs your child may have. For the principles, we examine the methods of teaching and learning in Singapore, as well as MOE's priority on assessments. Next, we consider the environment. COVID-19 stories have been added to reflect more accurately the world our child currently lives in. In addition, MOE's priorities on teaching and assessments, such as their focus on holistic assessments in dropping mid-year exams this year, are also considered in order to help your child prepare for their one and only exam at the end of the year. In order to consider the next part of your child's development, we then look at the content and sequencing. The story bank and relevant themes taught to your child every week will enable them to produce content that is reflective of their current environment. Additionally, the spiral sequence of our content enables revisiting of core writing skills weekly, just with new ideation and with new writing mechanics. We then look at the format and presentation. Structured notes and learner-centered teaching is conducted weekly, along with multimedia and hands-on activities presented by each of our teachers who themselves have very unique experiences and personalities. Your child will surely find a good fit. Finally, we examine the monitoring and assessment of your child's development. We want your child to achieve their learning goals. Therefore, in-house milestone tests are conducted in class. We also include a comprehensive grading rubric to allow teachers to provide diagnostic marking and feedback on any writing done by your child. Teachers are trained in utilizing this rubric to provide result-oriented solution, as well as to help your child make significant improvements and advancement in their writing. Finally, in order to ensure that our curriculum remains relevant and effective in school, we evaluate our curriculum on a yearly basis, dropping and adding stories and content for oral and writing to reflect the current environment, such as mentioned earlier, the addition of COVID-19 stories, as well as a renewed focus on social media. This way, we ensure that our curriculum is always theoretically, pragmatically sound for our students and teachers. Therefore, let us offer you a hand at Writers at Work. We are here as teachers first. Okay, door is closed. Good. We want you to join the course. Yes. But at the end of the day, Teacher Aryan and I were just here to share with you as many tips as we can, so that even if you choose to not journey with us at this moment, or journey with us journey with us right now, it doesn't matter. You can still go home with something that you can bring to your child today, drag them away from their game, sit down, study. I learned something at Writers at Work. You're going to do the thing right now. So before we do that, let me inquire. It is a Sunday. We are here together. Lay your burdens before the Lord. What are some pain points that you have when it comes to teaching your child? Because I know for a fact parents have so much stress just teaching their kid. Other kids can, but their own kids is very difficult. Okay, so those of you with no pain points, hats off. How do you do it? But those of us with pain points, okay, next slide. So most likely, right, these are some of the challenges that you may or may not have encountered. Trust and believe you will definitely encounter them at some point or another. Even teachers go through this. Teachers with kids, of course. Now, let's say, for example, you want to teach your kid, but you have no time. You have a lot on your plate. Honestly, running a family is hard. So if you squeeze that time out, you get your child to sit down, you have no idea what to teach or how to teach. Okay, now do what? Comprehension passage. What do I do? Okay, fine. So even if you figure out a way to teach your kid, what exactly does your kid need? What exactly does the teacher require from you, from your child in an exam? So you're not quite sure of the requirements. You can only hazard your best guess. And then you start teaching. And then you are shocked because, boy, like that also dulu girl, this one is you say every day, you cannot write on the paper. Because it's genuinely very different sets of skills. So you're shocked that your kid is even struggling. And then, when you ask your child, you never learned this in school. Your child may say no. Because writing is honestly barely taught in school. It's a genuine issue that even MOE teachers are contending with, honestly. Next slide. So, with all this in mind, there are several challenges that I have observed in my long and scarred years of educating. Namely, students coming in at P1 to P4, they lack comprehension skills. Don't assume just because your child reads a lot that they will excel in English. They're two completely different set of linguistic skills, okay? Next, when you give them new words, they forget to use them. You give them 12 words to describe happy, they will still say, I am happy, because it gets the point across. So they forget to use the new vocabulary. If you teach them a new word and they put it down, spelling is wrong. Teachers will still mark down for that. They will not count it at all. In fact, using a non-mundane vocabulary in the wrong context or with the wrong spelling hurts your child's marks a little bit more. Finally, students really have trouble constructing proper sentences. You'd be surprised at how hard it is for a child to get from a capital letter to a full stop at the end. It's not that easy. And when they get to school, P2 and P3, they're very different from when we were younger. When we were younger, 60 words, yay, full marks. No more. Even at P2, the bar is so much higher these days. So there's a very robust amount of requirements for our students that, quite frankly, understandably, they do have trouble meeting. So, what I'm going to do now is explain to you how exactly MOE is trying to get the end point in which the MOE wants your child to be, okay? So, this one here, P3, P4, if you don't have kids in PSLE, you may not have encountered this yet, but this is the event horizon. This is where your child has to ultimately get to in a few years' time. Now, MOE basically presents or structures their assessments like this because, by the way, this is from an SEAB. It is given out and used as a guide not just for parents, but it is part of the school's planning and curriculum as well. So this is also what they will follow. Now, they basically design their syllabus to meet communicative goals. That is MOE English syllabus ultimate goal. Now, however, for P3 and P4, when it comes to meeting communicative goals in the form of all of these things. So basically every single section you see here is a communicative goal that the child is supposed to meet. However, in P3 and P4, you're going to realize that none of their tests may look like this, or they look like baby's first comprehension close. It's really very simplified, and sometimes the formats vary wildly between schools. The only fixed schedule and format your child will encounter is the end of year exam, which will then look like this. Theoretically, it's supposed to give the kid a longer runway to get up to the end of year exam. So our notes in Writers at Work is basically aligned to follow MOE's new philosophy, which is reducing the stress, focus more on holistic learning, focus more on meaningful learning, which should make you more relaxed, but let's be real, does it? No, it just compresses the stress into the 4 weeks before the end of your exams, but it's still there. So, next slide. Let's just take a look at, for Writers at Work, how here it says AL1 lah, but ultimately your kids are still developing, so we just want to get them on the runway to take off. So these are the 3 ways in which we do it. First, we will build content knowledge. We will include weekly practice and training and revision and examination. Okay, so let me take you through each of these. Still with me, everybody? MOE, and for frankly all of language, writing doesn't exist in isolation. So the English language exam is designed to test different aspects of communicative competence, right? So these 2 here you see they're in paper 2. It tests the grammar rules and synthesis and transformation. But in order for your child to write well, they are going to need to use grammar rules and apply synthesis and transformation accurately and appropriately in their writing. So through our weekly writing practice, we will actually identify certain areas your child needs specific targeted improvement. So this 2 here will benefit because we highlight certain areas that your child has difficulty in. Now, paper 2 also tests for writing mechanics and question interpretation. Writing mechanics would obviously involve like literary devices, collocations and all that. So these writing mechanics are often tested in the comprehension close section, and it's no surprise that the child has a lot of difficulty here because the array of testable items is very broad. On the other hand, we have the comprehension question, which not only tests textual comprehension, which is the first hurdle, they also have to understand the question. So question interpretation and analysis is part of the critical thinking that's required for comprehension tests. Through writing practices, we build on the content knowledge. As mentioned, we've got a writing mechanics section, and the teachers will also verbalize and model critical thinking and comprehension through examining whatever writing prompts we may have. Aryan later will go a lot deeper into different ways that you can actually bring home some of these techniques. But for now, let me just say that all of these things will require weekly practice. Because if you sit down with your child every Wednesday, for example, Wednesday is comprehension day, and then one Wednesday you miss it, or the Wednesday after that. Or maybe Wednesday is not comprehension day, you've got a maths test tomorrow. Okay, forget comprehension, we're going to do maths. So this kind of fluidity that's required in the home schedule makes it very difficult to ensure that they have constant practice of exam critical cognitive skills. So, while the language skills are segmented by SEAB, we have to understand that when we're helping our kids improve in their language, it is all intertwined. Paper 1, paper 2, every single section is intertwined in the way that they speak or the way that they write. So, how exactly are we going to help your child build those exam muscles? A lot easier said than done. Have you all heard of the term test wiseness? No. Okay. It's basically how you take a test. Do you start at this section or do you start here? How long do you need for every question? If a test is 50 marks and your time frame is 1 hour, you have 1 minute to earn 1 mark and 10 minutes to check. So these are all very these are all skills that we take for granted because we come from the generation where we were over-tested. But our children have only got that one time at the end of the year. So they need to build up those exam muscles through consistent practice. Now, let me pass it on to Ariane, who will elaborate further on the 3 ways in which we help your children, get those excellent marks.
Before we jump right into our oral and paper 2, here are the different programs that we offer here at Parental. We have Primary 3 Write and English program combined, and we have Primary 4 English and Primary 4 Write programs. And of course, we also have holiday programs, so your kids are not stuck at home. Just kidding. We have the Power Talk, which focuses on oral, and Power Ace, which covers paper 1 and paper 2 of their English exam. So now, how to score full marks for Primary 3 and 4 oral exam. But first, let's take a look at the different components of oral examination. There are 2 components. The first one is
Reading aloud.
very good. What's the second component?
Conversation.
Alright, so parents, which part or component do you think do students have the biggest struggle or difficulty with?
Reading aloud.
Reading aloud, are you sure?
Wow.
I'll give you one more chance. There's only one more choice also. It is a stimulus-based conversation. Okay, so I remember, let me just share something to you, okay? During my P4 English stimulus-based conversation practice, it's their first time ever, I showed them this poster, and I provided the first question, which is very standardized. What is a poster about? That's the only question I gave to them. And I did provide them any framework first on how to give their responses, just so I can see how well they can construct their answers, and of course to also understand their learning needs for this certain aspect. So the one in front, picture the poster is about giving a vote. That's it. So with that, I observed 3 biggest challenges that students face for SPC, which are, first, their responses lack content. Second, they give haphazard answers. And lastly, they tend to go off the point. That's why it is important for us, parents and teachers, to help them master what to say and how to deliver these answers accurately so that they can ace their exams or even get full marks, because this is a good way for them to notch their final mark to a higher mark, of course. All right. So let's move on to this one. This is how we train our students here at Parental to master or know what to say during their oral exams. First, we train them, or you can also do this at home, okay? The reason why we are showing this to you is for you to be able to train your your children at home. And this is also what we do here. We're uniform, we do it here, or if you don't have time, let us do it for you. Alright, so detailed analysis. We break down and dissect the visual stimulus or the poster so that it's easier for the students to grasp the main idea or the context of the poster. Why is it important to understand the poster? It's just a poster. Failure to understand or comprehend the poster will lead to inaccurate responses. That's why it's very important. That's the first thing that you have to teach your children, okay? Next one, we predict questions. This is also a skill for them to know what possible answers they can share during the exam itself. So for example, we predict the first question. It's very standardized. It's usually directly linked to the question, to the poster, which is like, what is a poster about? Would you want to participate in this certain activity? Very straightforward. Now, the second and the third questions are quite generalized depending on the topics. Well, I'll show you later so you know what the popular topics are. And like what I mentioned, they can think of personal experiences or general knowledge that they can then use in their responses. So they'll be more confident and they have more content in their responses. And lastly, a lot of children know what to talk about Roblox and things like that. So we help them adopt a pet topic that they really, really enjoy and help them relate it to the question or to the stimulus. Okay. Next one, I promise that I'll show you the topics, the popular topics. Take a picture so that when you search for relevant materials to let your children read at home, you have an idea what kind of topics they will be. Okay. Now, you might be wondering still, but how? I still don't know what to do to help my child at home to ace his or her oral exam. Don't worry no more. Here are 3 tips that you can do at home. Number 1, expose them to different oral topics to build their content knowledge. Now that we have shown you the popular oral topics, find relevant or collect relevant materials that your children can read at home. However, you have to be very careful. You cannot just hand them a Straits Time application or newspaper and expect them to read the relevant news and pick up the important vocabularies and details that they can use to ace the exam. No, it will only confuse them. So, and we understand here at Writers at Work that it's too time-consuming and energy-consuming for you. Let us take that burden away. You can send an admin, not just kidding. So yes, here at Writers at Work, we curate reading materials that are targeted to answer these oral topics. Now, secondly, you can train your children how to the skill of question analysis strategies by predicting the questions ahead of time, so that again they would know, or they can easily think of their responses, which would be either be personal experience or general knowledge. All right, and most importantly, response presentation. They know what to say, but they don't know how to properly present or deliver it. So here at Writers at Work, I'll give you this tip, very important. You can help them master the PEAL structure. What's PEAL? PEAL stands for point, elaborate, evidence, and link. Now, mastering the PEAL is just one. Knowing the PEAL structure is just one thing. They need constant training and practice, and that's what we do here at Writers at Work. We ensure that we provide them sufficient practice and training, and we help them, or we polish how they say it, and of course, what they say during the exam. Check out our Writers at Work Primary 3 and 4 programs worksheets. Okay, quiz time, pop quiz. If you were looking at the PSLE breakdown of the components, what is a percentage for paper 2? It is 47.5%. Very heavy. But before I go on to that, let me start by sharing with you some things that we can do at home to help our children ace the comprehension open-ended. This is a killer section, okay? This is where our children and our students struggle a lot. Why? They fail to interpret the questions correctly. They don't know what the requirements in the questions. So that is what we help them here at Writers at Work to do. And that's what you have to help them at home as well, okay? Now, we try to acclimatize the students on how the comprehension open-ended looks like in their English exams. Of course, without the trigger questions or the prompts, we use these to train them how to be active readers. Some of us who are guilty of being passive readers at times, like we just read and then I ask you something, what is that about, or what is that passage about, and we don't have any idea, because we become passive readers just because I have to read it. But this is why we add prompts in our worksheets to make thinking visible for your children until it becomes a natural habit for them, and gradually, eventually, we'll say goodbye to these prompts, because then they know how to think on their own while they are reading. Okay, next page. This is how the questions in the comprehension open-ended looks like. So we have different questions, and you see the prompts there as well. Again, we use these so that our students would know the requirements in the question. Okay, that is how we help them. We do in-depth teaching through helping them identify the question words and looking for keywords so that we can target the requirements of the questions. Okay, and then another killer section, next slide please, is a synthesis and transformation. Why is this a killer section? Because students get either 2 marks or nothing. Believe it or not, even top performing students fail in this part of their paper too. That's why as early as now, we want our students to master the rules at the back of their heads. Lastly, this is the last one I promised to you. Grammar rules. This is very challenging to memorize and to remember, right? And that is why we constantly address this in our, or all of these rules in our lessons. Not everything all at the same time, but we'll revisit each and every rule every lesson. Okay? We make it bearable for our students to remember these rules by making it interesting and creative for them. For example, the boy versus the chicken, the lay and the lie, and then the BFFs or the couples, and the 5W and 1H. Just kidding. I said, to remember it, you use 5 warriors, 1 hero. No, teacher, 5 wives, 1 husband. No. 5 heroes, 1 warrior. I mean, 5 warriors, 1 hero. Okay, so that's it. The grammar rules, you can take a picture of it. You just have to zoom it in. I hope it's clear enough. Otherwise, you can enroll yourself. I'm just kidding. So I'll pass the floor over to teacher Kristen. She'll discuss more about how we can help your children improve their writing.
Okay, write programs. All right. Again, second round of confessions. Once more. What are some, I won't say lay your burdens to, the Lord can only take us so far, okay? Then the rest of us are gonna go on our own way. So what exactly is some feedback that you've received from your students' teachers? Because I know the parent-teacher meetings were for term 1 were just rounded up. Anyone have any feedback from? Out of point. Yeah, okay. Quite common.
Boring.
Me or the story? Okay.
The story.
All right, the story is boring. Thank you. Okay, out of point, boring. Those of you who are quiet, doesn't make sense. You know the story. The story, okay, I'm going to assume it's all about the story now, okay? So it doesn't make sense, it's boring, it's out of point. Now, these are very common responses. Genuinely very common responses. In my years of teaching, I've probably said it a ton because it's something that kids really, really face. It's a struggle that they deal with. So, those of you with no feedback, that is not actually a good thing because it means that feedback is like waiting to come. There are unseen challenges your child has not yet faced. Now, most of the times, these are the 4 common feedbacks that students will receive with regards to compositions. Some of them, now if your child receives 1 out of the 4, that's fine, we can work on it. If your child receives 4 out of 4, that's also fine. We will still work on it a little bit harder. But in general, teachers will always say your composition is number 1, out of point. Number 2, too short, lack content. Number 3, very flat, boring. Okay, sorry teacher. And number 4, work on your language. Whatever that means. What am I supposed to do? So it's very, very non-helpful advice. Now for Writers at Work, right, what we do is we take all of these 4 points and we try to provide guardrails, strategies, methods that your child can very, very actively do and easily check for when they are applying it in the examination setting, so that each of these will be preemptively addressed before your child even hands in the composition. So let me take you through some of the steps. Next, please. All in all, we just want to have our child score. Okay, I know I keep saying 4 marks, but quite frankly, you know your child best and where they are at and how far they can go within the amount of runway time that they have. We want to help your child develop because now at middle primary, the goal here is to ensure that your child does not learn to fear compositions, that they do not learn that they are incompetent at this task. We want to keep themselves always open for development, so we will try to get your child as far as they need. So it's very developmental focused. So let me take you through some of the guardrails I was talking about. Next, please. Okay, alright, what you see in front of you here is a lesson that I recently taught. Primary 4 Flying High, that's the title of the composition. All the compositions titles are very interesting and sometimes they are the worst puns in existence. I love them, they're the best. This one here, we noticed that we present it in a way that is, quite frankly, your child may not have actually seen in school. We follow the PSLE format. Now this is a P4 paper. Therefore, we use 3 random pictures. Now our pictures are honestly a bit more structured than what MOE will give, because sometimes they will give pictures that are very isolated and illustrated. So what we do is we try and give the students a leeway to develop ideas for ideation. So while this is P4, we also present P3 compositions in this manner. Of course, your child is not doing it yet, but ultimately we got to remember there is one big one we're all sitting for, which is the end of year. So we can actually train them. P2s can do this format. They can do 5W1H with this. But of course, school teachers, they have different ideas. But here for P3s, what we'll actually use is sometimes we will apply these random pictures to gear them up towards P4. And most of the time, we will give them linking pictures. Those illustrated pictures where they draw the boy falling down the hole, that kind of thing. So those are the ones that schools will usually present, but they'll present them in the 1, 2, 3, 4 format, and the end is usually a question mark. We just take the same content and we present it like this. Now, the question words you'll see here. So the first hurdle your children may face is that it is out of point. Guardrail number 1. We take our students through the process of breaking down the question words. So we take the students through breaking down the requirements specifically. And then we call this phrase here, getting into trouble, the question. So one guardrail that we teach our students is to take these question words and then specifically phrase them into a composition question, the composition sentence. This composition sentence will then become a question-specific phrase. And it's something very easy to check for even a P3 kid. Can you find a sentence with the words getting into trouble? No problem. You better find somewhere where someone's getting into trouble and put it in, because that's the first guardrail that the child may not have actually addressed the question. Or, yes, 3 times. Teacher, are you synonym also? Cool. Highlight. Make sure your tired, exhausted teacher sees it, please. And that one is there. Something easy that the child can do. Your child, you can get them to do this as well in their practice. Just look for 3 different highlights of this phrase. Is it there? Good. You should not be out of point. Is it not there? Okay, problem. Where can we fix it and where can we put it in? So, first guardrail. Next, please. The second guardrail. I've had just recently a student who's, the mom called me all in a tizzy, like, oh, I can't believe he failed his composition exam, and he's been with me for 2 years. So immediately my heart rate also escalated. 2 strands of hair went white. I asked him, why did he fail? Oh, then it turns out he wrote about the question and completely somehow ignored his picture in that moment of panic that this child had. So honestly, what he should have done, what I also told the mother, is that when you're doing this, you guys can do this as well. When it comes to getting into trouble, here, look at the picture. You want to encourage the student to take that picture and precisely describe it. What do you see in the picture of a kite? A tail, the kite frame, the colors that are implied by the shadings. So take these phrases, these very precise phrases, and put them in a composition sentence. This composition sentence will become a picture, precise phrase. So students are now, or rather children are now trained to check for these items. They check for the QSP phrases highlighted. They check for picture phrases highlighted. And where do these different highlights and different prompts appear in the story? That's where we take them through the story curve. Next, please. Okay, so your child basically has sat down with us. They have gone through or rather, maybe even sat down with you. You and your child have discussed the question. Getting means the main character must get into trouble. Trouble means what? Oh no, mother gonna scold you. Okay, cool. So at this point, I'll show you just the difference between the P3 and P4. So this is an example of a story mountain. But before you climb mountain, you climb stairs. This is the P3 version, the story staircase. We use a mnemonic to help our students remember what is required in every single paragraph. For P3, it is the person, emotion, action, scene, PEAS. Now, in between, P3 standard mostly is 4 paragraphs, so you don't have to worry too much. But some schools will require only 3. That is fine. Get your kid to produce the 3 that are required. The students often just combine ideas in a paragraph, but it's still 4 points in the story. So here, in between, you'll see these chain boxes. These are another visual reminder for our children to just ensure they have a linking word in between. So we try and structure everything that's required in the composition. So now, P3, climb staircase. P4, climb mountain already. This is the story curve, the mountain that we use in primary 4. You can see we've changed the mnemonic because in P4 they require a different level of complexity in their descriptions. So it's no longer person, emotion, action, scene. It is character, environment, because naming the scene is different from describing the environment, which is what's required for P4, a more in-depth description. Now, teachers will guide your child in planning out all of this, and I want you to take note of the different types of boxes that there are as well. Introduction, climax, resolution, conclusion are still there, but you'll see that we include certain writing mechanics that add a certain level of complexity for your child's writing as well. So if you want to go home and you want to plot a story with your kid, try to include a suspense setting phrase, and try to include, where possible, a twist that makes sense. I've had students suggest dinosaurs come down from the moon to get the kite down. I don't know what that child ate that day, but I want some. So in this case, you want to make sure that it is well structured for your child when you go through the planning process. And beside it, back please, you'll see a flower blocking something. Alright, so anyway, that page then is called the big picture. It is part of our in-class ideation process. The kids love this one because they will always come in and ask me every lesson, Teacher Kristen, got video? And then I ask them, Teacher Kristen always got video. Your first lesson Of course I got video. So this is the part where they really get into it. We'll have videos, we'll have dramatizations, we'll have role plays, we'll have all kinds of like kids rolling on the floor and everything. And then it's all part of the ideation process, and it creates an emotional connection to the story. I remember flying high. Yeah, because my teacher made me stand on the chair, and then 2 chairs, and then 3 chairs, and I thought I want to die. Because it connects with the story. So here, it honestly just helps memory, and it helps to build rich content for the composition as well. So, the P4's approach to keep the story interesting and on point is, next page, guided story plot and structure with the added complexity of the suspense setting and the plot twist, as well as a new level of checklist for every single paragraph, the character, action, feeling, and environment. Alright, pop quiz. How many words do you think is required for your child to write in P4? Oh, don't know. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's about 300 words. 400 words. 500 words. It's between 500 to 700 words within the 45 minutes minimum that your child has to sit down. So here, this is a lot for your kid. It really, really is a lot for your kid. So what we advocate is for you guys when you're practicing at home, if you've written a few robust, very, very good stories, like we do for Writers at Work, we do it every week, you want to get your kid to be so familiar with that story that they can look at the question, look at the picture, and remember, I can actually use this story. I wrote it. I know the story very well. So they basically skip past the planning and the ideation process in the test, and they jumpstart their writing by applying a story they've already practiced. If you are going to give someone, your mother-in-law or father-in-law, a meal, you're going to want to practice cooking that meal. You're not going to go to the fridge and throw something together and then hand it over and expect the person to give the blessing, to let you know, whatever it is. So, unless you Gordon Ramsay. I'm hungry. Anyway, moving on. Essentially, you want to get the child to provide practice compos, okay? Let me go to the next. So, this is also to address the boring part and the paper 2 comprehension close section. Remember how we talked about writing mechanics? Every story has different writing mechanics. Now here is where we will do something called discourse-based teaching. Essentially, we will take the story, the writing mechanic, and we will teach with examples from the current story. Then we will get the students to practice the writing mechanic in the current story. So everything is highly contextualized for the child. You'll see there, learning to describe emotions, P3. Because in primary 3, they have linking pictures, the most adaptive thing they can bring to class is emotion, or rather phrases that they can apply in different scenarios. P4, they can apply more plots. So you can see here, describing the varying degrees of emotional escalation at this point. So we have different sentences and then they go through it. And this is where they will climb on chairs and all that kind of thing. So basically learn to describe the writing mechanic. We want to make it real for them. So now that they have been in our class, we've gone through the question. Okay, we've gone through the big picture. Okay, we've done the writing mechanic. I know I'm going to write about emotional escalation today. Okay, now this is the part that the teachers get to rest a bit. Alright, class, start writing. Okay, writing do what? Next page, please. Next slide, please. So this is how our writing presentation is, writing is presented in our classroom. You can do this as well. Of course, nothing stopping you from writing a composition and cutting it down like this, by all means. You will see that there's two types of writing tasks the students are required to perform. Take a look at the guided writing first, because this is the one that most students tend to benefit from. This guided writing provides content for that paragraph phrased into little pieces of sentences. So this is where the synthesis and transformation comes in. The child is required to sit down, look at the content that they planned for, look at the phrases, and connect them in a meaningful way while adding their own elaborations. So this is the one that they practice their synthesis and transformation, and this is where we find out that they need practice in synthesis and transformation. On the other hand, once they develop a bit more and they gain more independence, we go into independent writing, which is no blanks, surprise me. We are often very, very surprised. With varying degrees of pleasure, of course, but yes, it is where the students can independently stretch themselves and gain some confidence when they experience success. So now that they've finished their writing, next page, they've gone through the exam stamina. Because our writing in my classroom, every paragraph will take 10 minutes. That's what you gun for, 10 minutes. The minimum requirement for composition writing in exams is 45 minutes. Schools will usually, for upper primary, of course, they have more tasks to do, but for lower primary, it's 45 minutes to an hour 10. So if you write 5 paragraphs with 10 minutes each, guaranteed you will have editing time, which your child should not be using to play with their stationery, but instead looking for QSBs and PPPs. But before we even get there, once we're past the examination rigor, this is where your child benefits. So here, your child has one composition that they wrote with their elaboration. Oops, I just smacked the mic, pardon me. And then we've got another composition, which is written by our in-house teachers. So 2 versions of the text that they can examine and study, that they can draw phrases and examples from. Now, these practiced compositions are the best for exams because it jumpstarts the writing process and they deliver something that they can describe and they know they can do well because they did well in class, either with you or with us. Now, to revisit the 4 headaches. You alright? Okay. To revisit the 4 headaches, next slide please. So the guardrails that we put in place, just to condense everything after my long spiel. The composition is out of point. No, it's not, teacher. I wrote the question word 3 times and I have 3 different instances of the picture description. I highlight for you, teacher. Can see. So it's not out of point. Your composition lacks content. No, it's not, teacher. I already wrote this story with so many phrases, and then my writer's level teacher made me stand on the chair to learn about emotional escalation. It doesn't lack content. I wrote 5 paragraphs and they're so long. Your story is very boring, very, very flat. It's not, teacher. I practiced before guided writing. They've actually gone through the training. And then you need to work on your language. I do really what? I read through 2 different versions of this composition. I know the composition like the back of both of my hands. Can do. Now once your child goes in with, I don't know whether they want to talk like a gangster or what, but once your child goes in, I just don't know why kids just equating that in my head. When they go in with these guardrails, right, essentially, it gives them a sense of confidence and a very proceduralized approach to an exam. It's not just, here's a paper, work your magic. There's actually methods that we help your child to practice. So next slide. All in all right, all this long story, whether I do it for your child or whether you do it for your child, what's the success for this method? Can students actually score full marks for P3 and P4? Yes, 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 and yes. This is my student script. Can be done. But even if your child is not gunning for that full marks, even if you just want to get your child to move the pencil and produce something interesting and logical, we need to take that first step. Okay? right? So this is where we will then open the floor here and encourage you to consider for yourself how exactly do you want to build that content knowledge, how exactly are you going to structure that practice and training, and finally how exactly are you going to give your child the regular, rigorous exam application practices that your child needs. Now, if any of these three are going to be very hard for you, understandable, do the best you can, as I'm sure you'll do, or join us.